So we're finally entering the last phase of the drawing, which is where we get to introduce some white. And you can see that I've already started to put a little bit of white in off camera. And those are places I'm looking specifically at the top half of the head, and I'm asking myself, okay, where are the spots that are the most illuminated? So where is the light hitting the face the brightest? So on this picture, it so happens that the middle of the forehead is catching the light. There's a little bit of light in the corner of the eye closest to the nose on that left eye, maybe a little bit on the right. But one thing I wanted to tell you before you actually start putting the white in is that you want to use pressure to your advantage. I recommend, just like I did with the red, that you start out going lighter with your white than you think you're going to need to go. Or in this case, not as bright as you think you'll need to go. So start off with a little bit of pressure, and then you can steadily increase the pressure. Now there will be spots that just are brighter, like that tip of the nose. There's a little shine that happens on the tip of the nose, and that's pretty common in most lightings. The nose, that ball of the nose will be in highlight, but you just have to look for those because they're not all equally bright. If you do make them all the same degree of bright or go too intense with your white, it'll flatten your form. So like right there in the nose, I'm not going as heavy as I can go. I'm going very light. I'm going at a diagonal hatch. And I'm getting that upper lip on that left side into the lights. It is very important that if you want to go over a spot that has some red in it, you have to erase the red before you put it down. If not, you'll get that kind of murky pink that I've described to you before, and that's something you really should avoid. And one thing you can do, if that does happen, if you accidentally mix a little red in with your white, because it does happen, if it does happen and it's really noticeable, erase it off. So you still want to leave some of the gray of the paper exposed. It shouldn't just be red, white, and none of the gray poking through. You actually want that gray of the paper to be doing some of the work for you, so you're not doing it all yourself. And you can see I've actually switched. That's the thing about using the white. Like, it also makes you aware of where you need to go in with the red. And you're going to see me do that throughout this video, that I'll go back and forth, white, red, white. Because putting in the white brings attention to certain areas, and you'll probably realize, as I did, like, oh, I need to darken that shadow. This shadow compared to this shadow is much darker, so let me work on that for a minute. And that's okay. We're in the finishing stages of this drawing, so you do want to look and pay attention to the different values, and you want to pay attention to the details in the drawing. If there's anything that's not working, try adjusting it. And you can see I do have my blending stump out. And I think I told you guys, you do have to be careful with creases on the face, because it's very easy to make a young person look old by putting those creases too dark and too severe, like with your line edge. You want it to be a soft edge so that it just like kind of melts back into the skin tone. Again, very easy to make someone look older than they actually are when you're drawing them. One thing I also recommend, which is hard to do if you're sitting, but I recommend you pause and do this, it's to step back and look at your drawing from 6 feet or 8 feet back, so you can kind of see how it looks without just looking at it up close and kind of out of that range. Because sometimes you notice things from a distance that are hard to notice or recognize up close. So I do recommend that you step back and look at your work from afar. And I do that with all my drawings and paintings. There are other things you can do if you notice that something's not working. So if you feel like there's an error and you can't recognize what it is, but you just know that something's off, try flipping your painting upside down or your drawing upside down and looking at it in that way. So you'll see the mistakes more readily if it's upside down. And that's something that I do with my paintings. If I feel like something's a little bit off and I can't figure out what it is or how to fix it, I'll turn it upside down and work on it upside down for a while. You can also hold a mirror up to your drawing and look at your drawing in the mirror, and it's also a trip. Sometimes photographing it can help too. So if you have a cell phone camera and you photograph it, you can, for some reason, I guess the photo flattens it, but you can sometimes see mistakes in a photograph of your work than actually looking at your work in real time. So I'm just softening that edge of that hair there, that transition, and I want that to be a nice form shadow. It is very important that you understand the difference between a form shadow and a cast shadow. It can be tricky on the face because usually when we talk about cast shadows in still life, cast shadows in still life means the shadow that's on the ground plane or the tabletop. But when we're talking about cast shadows on a face, we're talking about a shadow cast by the nose, for instance, onto the cheek, or from the upper lip onto that place just below the, or just near the chin area. So cast shadows are a little bit trickier to identify when we're talking about a portrait. So you can see I actually have a picture printed out right next to where I'm working. And that's what I'm looking at. And I'm trying some blending in the hair, and I'm experimenting too. I usually don't use a blending stump, but I wanted to give it a go. And I actually like it. That's the thing, like, about being an artist. Sometimes we get kind of set in our ways, like, I don't like blending stumps. I only like using the natural stroke. But then you try something after a while, and it's again, this is not so bad. So it is a good thing to push yourself out of your normal comfort zone and to try new things as an artist. But it has to feel right for you. It's also good to give yourself a break and look at it with fresh eyes on another day. Like the hair, for instance, needs more work. I'm going to pick out more of the highlights in the hair and define it a little bit better. My main goal today was to work on the highlights on the face. Not necessarily done with it, but wanted to at least get a good 3/4 of the way done with the highlights on the face. I'll do tweaking and adjusting and kind of perfecting it the next session. All right, so this is where you can stop. Oh, there's my eraser where I'm erasing out. But this is where you can stop at this stage.